This conference will now be recorded.
I got 6 o'clock and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have one amendment to add to the agenda, which will be 9E, advertising for bids for the trail improvements. So I just need a motion and approval of the amendment to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-0. Review the minutes from the regular council meeting of May 4th. Hey. Yeah.
Approve the minutes from May 4th.
Second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-0. Review the minutes from our work session from May 10th.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes from the work session of May 10th.
I'll second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-0. Accounts payable. Mr. Prigi.
Just a couple to highlight. One was $78,774 for CETA for $10,850.83. The other one was Heartland Trees that we had voted on and approved last meeting. That number was $78,784 for $6,800. And Excel for electricity for $78,801 for a total of $8,647.94. So I would make a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $39,296.91.
Second.
Any further discussion? Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-0. Thanks, Bob. We'll open the public comments portion of the meeting. Individuals may address the city council about any items of concern. Speakers must state their name and limit their remarks to 5 minutes. Any public comments? I will close the public comment portion and we will jump down to 8A, unfinished business capital improvement investment planning tool. We have Jessica from Ehlers. Everybody says it a little bit different, but Ehlers is it. The floor is yours.
Well, Brian gets that set up. It's okay if I stand here? My voice is kind of quiet, so. I understand I'm head to head with baseball, so I will try to move quickly. You've heard much of this presentation. The plan has been tweaked a little since you saw it last based on some feedback from all of you. And I understand that the purpose of presenting at a council meeting instead of a work session is to make sure that everyone in the public has access to this as well as the press. So the first 10 slides or so are a repeat of what you've seen before, talk about where you've been in this process, and I'll go through those quickly. So the first one is just to remind you why we embarked on this almost a year ago now. And that was because you saw that you were facing a lot of capital improvement projects and you wanted to know how could we best pay for them in the most affordable way and prioritize them and how to finance them. So this plan that we put together with tremendous input from staff, and I really want to thank everyone on the staff for their involvement. Lays that all out for you and measures the concept or the impacts to the taxpayers of doing various initiatives that you want to do. Thank you. So with the plan, it's a tool that Kim and Brian now have access to, and we stand ready to support them. It's a tool to make sure you can maintain the city facilities, manage constituent expectations, and accomplish what it is that you want to for the community. Let's see. Great. So let's skip to the next slide. The assumptions in the plan, am I blocking your view a little?
I
Let
can
me
see
do
it right here.
this. How's that? So what do you press here? Oh, okay. Oh, that's the mic. I'm sorry. I thought it was the clicker. So the assumptions in the plan is, first of all, we assume that there would be no growth in LGA, local government aid. That's a key assumption. There's been talk at the legislature of increasing local government aid. We aren't counting on that in this plan. If that comes through, we can make adjustments, and that would be a wonderful thing. We've also assumed that non-tax revenue increases at 1%, that your operating expenses increase at 3%, and your capital inflates at 4 to 5%. So with LGA at almost half your budget not going up and other revenues only going up 1%, you can see that most of the pressure for increasing inflationary expenses falls on the property tax. So speaking of property tax, we know that the values increased for pay 2023 21%. But we aren't counting on that level of growth for the future. So we assume 2% market value increases going forward. We assume there'd be 5 new homes built a year and no new commercial development. So again, intended to be relatively conservative assumptions. We then went through and working with staff, considered all the priority projects, and we did this last November. And so go ahead to the next slide, please. So in November, we brought back to you the tax impacts of all the priority projects, and I don't know that you were all on the council at that point in time. We got feedback at a work session. We finalized the capital equipment plan, which had some revisions, incorporated your feedback, and came in March with the revised plan. So back in November, just to give you a sense, our goal was to put in everything that was a twinkle in somebody's eye of what the role of government could be. So we had included in there an outdoor swimming pool, a community center, a joint library expansion and daycare facility. We had put in there acquiring industrial land to encourage industrial development and significant road projects. We had also put in there a significant amount for police and public safety equipment, campground expansion, a generator, some stormwater improvements, staffing additions, and the park road. So you can see that it was a pretty ambitious plan. The result of that was that in 2024, the property tax on a $235,000 valued home was going to go up 17%. And then each of the 3 years after that, it would go up another 25%. So, and that was basically a $6 million project every year. So the feedback we got in November was that that was too high of tax increases, that we needed to prioritize. One of the priorities was the industrial land purchase. Another thought was, well, maybe we could do a combo swimming pool and community center. The library was not considered as much of a priority, and the main priority was let's focus on our core services, our roads, our equipment, and the basic services that the city needs to accomplish. So I did just want to briefly remind you our exploration of the indoor community center and pool, or community center and indoor pool complex. You, of course, didn't have any plans drawn up for this or any cost estimates, so I did a little digging using the Jack Links Community Center in Minot, Wisconsin as an example. I had the 2015 costs. I inflated those for present day. I scaled back the project, and lo and behold, the cost estimate was almost $16 million for a facility like that. So if you go to the next page, we assume that even if you raise half of it through fundraising, donations, and grants, you'd probably have to finance the rest of it. And the upshot of it is that and then there's operating subsidy because these things never pay for themselves. And the upshot of that is that the tax levy would increase 36% to pay for the community center. So that was not incorporated in the revised plan. But I just wanted to let you know we did explore that because I know it would be a nice amenity for the community. So in the revised plan, these are the priorities. The road projects, which I'll detail in a minute, capital equipment, including, I believe, a street sweeper and trucks. The replacement of the outdoor swimming pool at a cost of $4.4 million. And then I think originally there was the desire to add 1.5 staff people. That was scaled back to a part-time admin staff in 2025. So again, really focusing on core services and replacing the pool, which is an existing service. So a little more detail on each of those. This is the road projects over the next 5 years. And our plan went out 10 years, so we assumed some future road projects, I think, as well. I'd have to check. But you can see that in 2024, there's a couple of road projects planned for street reconstruction. So that's a big year, as is 2025 and 2027. So those priorities were in the plan originally and stayed in the plan. The major pieces of equipment that are in the plan are a loader, a plow and dump truck, a street sweeper, and a tandem axle plow. And then there are pickup trucks and mowers and other things in there, but these are the big ticket items that were included. And there was a lot of scrutiny about equipment and can we get our equipment to limp along a little bit longer and what's the payback of buying new equipment, and this is where the staff recommendation ended up for the purchase of new equipment. Then we looked at the outdoor swimming pool, and so the revised estimate for that from Brian was $4 million, and we inflated that to $4.4 million, considering it would be built in 2024. We assumed that half of it would be funded, or just over $1 million would be funded with donations, not a half, and that $3.35 million would be financed with bonds. And then we looked at two different options. In the plan you saw in March, we had assumed a sales tax of 1%. And most communities, I would say, that levy a sales tax are probably more in the half-cent range. But a 1% sales tax would have paid for the debt service on that $3.3 million in bonds. So you could have done the pool without any property tax impact in our estimation. So, but the feedback that I received from you through Brian is that a half-cent sales tax may be more palatable. So this is the change of what you haven't seen before. We modeled in the half-cent sales tax. That would generate an estimate of $150,000 a year. It would pay for half of the debt service. And if you look on the next page, or the next slide, I'll jump to the bottom. That's an $83 per year tax impact for the pool on a $235,000 home. Plus, people in the community would be paying the half-cent sales tax. On the next slide, if there were no sales tax and all of the cost of the swimming pool fell on the property tax, that would be twice then, or $165 per year for the life of the bonds. So that's what's included in the plan. Our goal initially was to keep the property tax increase at 6.5% annually or less. We did achieve that in the plan you discussed in March, but that assumed that the swimming pool was all paid for by a sales tax. And now that we've scaled back the sales tax, there's 1 year where we're above 6.5%, and I'll show you that in a minute. The other comment I want to make about the sales tax, just to remind you about the process, is it does require special legislation. And there are numerous proposals for local option sales taxes in front of the legislature right now. And I don't know if any of them are going to move forward because there's a lot of policy discussion happening at the state legislature about whether there should be local option sales tax. Does it unfairly benefit communities that are unduly rich in retail? Does it make communities fight for retail? Is it too regressive? There's lots of policy questions going on about the sales tax. So you can try for the sales tax next legislative session, but I can't give you a good read on whether it would be successful. Once you get legislative approval or special legislation to adopt the sales tax, then you have to go to your voters and get a referendum approving the sales tax. So it's a two-step process. So doing the pool in 2024 with the sales tax, I haven't mapped out that timing. That may be a little ambitious because it has to be at a general election, so you probably couldn't hit the election until the fall of 24. So it may actually be a 25 project if you want to use the sales tax. So any questions on that so far? I'm going pretty quickly through this. All right, so there were some other funding strategies that we used in the plan. One is that you have a fund balance policy that is that you want to retain in your general fund 50% of the next year's expenditures. And that's really important because that measure happens in December 31st. That's right after you've received your property tax installment from the county, and that you won't get another property tax installment until July. So you need money on hand to get you through your next installment in July. So you want to maintain at least 50%. Right now you're at about 61%. So one of the strategies we used is to use some cash for these purchases and bring that balance down to 50%. So you're still within your policy, but you are not as, your reserves would be lowered. Go ahead. So another funding strategy is to assess a portion of 9th Street East in 2024. And I know that you don't generally assess properties, but refresh my memory why this was an assessment that made sense.
And we don't assess for previously improved roads, but this will be the first improvement. It's gravel road now, and this will be the first improvement. So then that's when we special assess.
Right. Thank you. The other is that you're supporting your stormwater utility with some property tax dollars. And in the plan, we ended that property tax support of stormwater utility and suggest you increase your stormwater utility fee so that that fee, which affects all property owners, not just taxpayers, is supporting the stormwater utility, and I'll touch on that again. And then another significant strategy is we took out the acquisition, the $2 million acquisition of the industrial park land. And the reason we did that was, first of all, affordability. And the second was an assessment of risk, that you could buy it and they might not come. And we've seen that happen in a lot of cities. You hit the development cycle wrong, interest rates are rising, as we know right now, which is slowing development. And we think that there are other strategies that can be used to attract industrial development without risking $2 million. And those might include making sure that the city utilities are planned for and ready to go, maybe not installed yet, but at least you have a funding mechanism and you have the plans drawn up to get them to a site quickly, for example. There might be some marketing strategies. There are some other things we can talk about that using tax increment or tax abatement to lure an industrial user. So we took the acquisition of the property out of the plan. And lastly, I know that the city of Zumbrota has not historically issued much debt. You did in 2020 or 21 for a road project. But we have some select and judicious use of debt in this plan. So why would you consider issuing debt? A couple of reasons. One is that you don't have enough cash on hand in the short term to get those road projects done and those equipment purchases made. So it allows you to meet the needs today without having huge spikes in your property taxes. Another is that it aligns the cost of those improvements with the people benefiting from the improvement. So if you bought them out of cash reserves today, everybody that lived here up to this point would have paid for those roads and that equipment that's going to serve the people that live here the next 20 years. If you issue debt, the people taxed to pay for the debt are paying for the services at the time they're being used. So those are the two reasons to consider issuing debt. And the debt issuances we have in the plan are on this slide here. I mentioned the one for the swimming pool, the 3.35 million for the swimming pool. I think in the last plan we had $1 million for roads in 2024 and 2025. With the tweak in the sales tax and paying for the swimming pool, I've reduced the road debt in 2024 to $800,000 to try and minimize that 2025 impact, and increased it in 2025 to $1.2 million. So overall, it's still $2 million for roads. I just rebalanced it a little bit. And then there are and another $1 million for roads in 2029. So whenever there is this road reconstruction project, we are relying on debt if you choose to do that. And then there are two equipment certificates. Equipment certificates is just what we call issuing debt when the purpose is for buying equipment. And there's a small one in 2024 for $200,000, and then slightly larger, $350,000 in 2026. Now, this is not a debt plan. Before you issue any debt, we would use this plan, the bid costs, we would model it in, we would see what interest rates are at the time. You would make a decision at that time whether or not to issue debt. So by adopting this plan now, you aren't committing yourselves to issuing debt. We're just showing that by the use of debt, you can keep a pretty level tax rate with the exception of the year that the swimming pool hits. And that's shown on this next slide. And those numbers are a little bit small, but starting in 2023, with the exception of 2025, which is what's circled in red there, or squared in red, we have a total levy increase of roughly 6.5% or less. It's ranging between 6.1% and 6.6%, a small bump in 2031 up to 7%, but that's far enough away we can manage that. The exception is in 2025 for the swimming pool when the levy increase would need to be 11.6%. That's assuming a 0.5-cent sales tax.
That's with the half cent?
That's with the 0.5-cent sales tax, yep. And then, so this is what happens to your levy. The next slide is what happens for a homeowner, a sample homeowner that has a $235,000 house. And you can see those percentages are almost the same. So their taxes would increase 6.5% per year, roughly, with the exception of 2025, when it would go up 11.5%. Again, that's with the 0.5-cent sales tax. And that's assuming the pool is constructed in 2024. So if it gets constructed in 2025, you would just push that back a year. The next slide shows the impact on that same taxpayer, but if there was no sales tax. And again, you have roughly a 6.5% increase every year. Well, a 6.5% increase in 2024, then it goes up almost 18% in 2025 as a result of the pool, and then it goes back down to less than 6%. So you start to measure and to put that in context, a 6.5% increase on this sample property is $87 a year. The 17.8% increase is $256 a year. So that puts some numbers around it. Any questions on this so far? I'm almost done. Okay. So I said I would circle back and talk about stormwater. So the pressures on, you have a separate stormwater fund. The pressures in that fund are that when you do these road construction projects, the curb and gutter and the stormwater conveyance systems under the road are stormwater expenses. And right now, your stormwater fee is $2.25 per single family home. And that generates about $25,500 a year. And that's to pay for street sweeping, maintenance, pond cleaning out, all the stormwater expenses, plus the capital expense. And the capital expense alone is averaging about $35,000 a year. So you can see that you're having to fund your stormwater system from other sources, or you will have to once you do these road construction projects. Currently, you're levying $6,000 a year for stormwater. We eliminated that, and we suggest instead that you increase the fee 90 cents in 2024 and another 90 cents in 2025 and 5% increases thereafter, and that should cover your stormwater expenses. So it would go up from $225 to $315 to $405.
Can I just ask a question quick?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that these fees are at least partially the result of not special assessing for road projects, or is that not true?
No, because while stormwater can be specially assessed, it typically is paid for by stormwater fees if a city has a stormwater fee.
Okay.
It is fair to say that your stormwater fee is very low compared to other communities that are paying for all of their stormwater costs with the stormwater fee. So in the metro area, this is on a monthly basis, right, Kim? In the metro area, I would say stormwater fees are, $12 a month. And in greater Minnesota, I see them range anywhere from $2 to $12 or more per month. And again, it depends on how many costs are being charged to the stormwater fund. But you're at the very low range right now of communities that have stormwater fees. So the next slide shows your stormwater fund. You can see that in 2024, or in 2023, you basically have no cash in your stormwater fund, and we have those street improvements coming in 2024. So part of the debt issuance is to finance the stormwater portion of the street, and then to use your stormwater increases to pay back that debt service, and also start to build reserves so that as you move forward, you don't have to finance stormwater improvements. So to summarize, the strategies we employed in the plan to maintain a levy increase at 6.5% or less, with the exception of the swimming pool, was to prioritize projects so that you're really delivering on core city services. Reducing the general fund reserves from 61% down to 50% of next year's expenditures, so using some cash. Increasing the stormwater fee and eliminating the stormwater levy. Exploring sales tax for the swimming pool. Finding alternatives to acquiring the industrial land, and the judicious use of debt. So this plan, if it's acceptable to the council, will then serve as a guide to staff as they start pulling a budget together, so that the budget you see later this summer, still spring, but later the year, would conform to the concepts in this plan. So that's one of the first purposes of the plan. The second purpose, as I set out in the beginning, is to manage constituent expectations. So you know as a community what you can accomplish that still seems affordable in your judgment as policymakers. And you can manage the expectations of the community, both for what projects we can't afford, but also really how much did land in this plan. Better roads, improved equipment, a little bit of supplement to staff, the half-time position, and a lot of financial stability and predictability in the tax rate. So your tax rate is not going to go like this as you do projects. So the next step would be any feedback and discussion tonight. If you are comfortable with the way the plan is laid out, then it would be adopting the plan. And the plan then serves as a guide for the budget and is a tool, as I said, in Excel that staff have. And we're here to support staff in making any changes to the plan that you want to, so it will evolve from year to year. And that's all I have for this evening, other than answering questions.
I guess I have one question. This is basically a tool for us from the objectives we have today to get us into the future. But if we need to adjust or want to adjust amounts on certain things, we also have the right to do that, correct?
Absolutely, that's what it's designed for.
It's just a tool versus this is a way we have to do it. This is just a tool to say, here's some things we want to do to get where we need to be, but we can change those down the road.
I would say by adopting the plan, and it's really your discretion if you want to formally adopt it, because as you say, it's a tool and it's a guide. But if you do adopt the plan, there's policy embedded in this plan. And so you're giving policy guidance to staff so they know how to proceed in bringing back budgets to you. But it doesn't authorize spending that's not in a budget. It doesn't authorize the issuance of debt. That would come back for special authorization. So it is a plan, exactly.
See, but I would call it more of a tool than I would a plan.
Sure.
When I think of a plan, I think about this is the way it's got to be.
Okay.
And that's why I'm calling it a tool versus a plan.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Questions for Jessica? I know we've seen it a couple times, and I know before the other newer councils, we've seen it. All right. James?
My last question.
Go
I was
ahead.
just curious on when you're talking about the 61% to the 50% on reserve. And I think I've asked something similar before, but if you draw, sorry. If the city draws down to 50%, but then the levy increases 6.5%, you're no longer 50% operating reserve for the next 6 months at the end of a fiscal year. So does it does the modeling account for that?
It does.
It does, okay,
It does, yes.
thank you.
And it takes a number of years to draw it down, right? I mean, it
Yes.
doesn't go down all at once.
Right. But once, I mean, you make a really good point that once you've drawn, you may be used to adopting break-even budgets. And if you want to maintain 50%, once you hit the 50%, to maintain that the next year, you're actually going to have to budget a surplus because your 50% gets a little bit bigger every year. So you need to budget surplus budgets to maintain your adequate cash reserves. And we factored that in. Yeah.
Just following on that same thing, the 61% down to 50. If we find ourselves in the middle of the year, all of a sudden there's no money because we're waiting for that rollover, would that be a situation, or is that not a situation in this plan?
It's 50%, because you have other revenues besides property tax
Okay,
revenues.
yeah.
So 50% of your property tax revenues comes in twice a year.
Gotcha.
But you have other more routine revenues coming in. You have utility revenues. So it's not designed to cut it that tight.
Gotcha.
Yeah. These are excellent questions.
Ready for your quiz now?
This was a lot of work, a lot of time. We were very intentional and we brought it back many times for comments, questions, things like that. Jessica, I don't know how you put all these numbers together and make sense of them and then fit them all under 6.5%, a somewhat reasonable levy increase each year. So we can do a lot of things. Again, like Todd said, it's a tool. It'll give us a guide. Kim and I will start budgeting and bring it back, and this will guide us. As far as issuing debt, that has not been a philosophy of Zumbrota for many years. But we've got a lot of things to do, and we just can't do everything. We can many years down the road if we save cash for every road we do. I don't think you'll find too many communities without some sort of debt that have, decent roads and decent infrastructure. So, it's all modeled in there. So feel safe that issuing debt is part of the plan. It's another tool to use to keep the city performing at a top level and keep amenities, roads, infrastructure viable.
But realistically, can we get the pool done in 2024?
No, I don't think so.
I mean,
Then that's the beauty of the tool. We'll just
Yeah.
move things down.
yeah, I mean, because realistically, I mean, I don't think we can do that in 2024. So that'll get pushed to 2025.
Right, with the schedule that we've
Yeah.
got with, if we do a sales tax or even the referendum is in November of 2024, because I don't see that we would, unless you want to, run a special election, which is a costly thing to get it going quicker, but.
But like Jessica said, who knows if we even get the sales tax?
Right.
Because where they're going up there, I mean, myself and Mayor Freeze went up there not that long ago on a different issue. And yeah, I didn't think it was going to pass some of the other ones of the sales tax. So that is an avenue that you see this every day. So the chances of it passing it, probably not the greatest right now unless things change.
I think that's true. Now, next year will be the same. I think it'll be the same body, and then the following year will be after an election. So, yeah. But then there's discussion of letting everybody have a sales tax instead of doing it by special legislation. So it's all over the board.
Yes.
And Ayler's the tool that we're talking about here. You guys do that with a lot of communities our size or
We do,
communities in general?
yes.
We've had a little bit of history. We've had them, I'm on my 7th year, and I think they were here. They've done different things, strategic plan, and you've done a lot of things for the city of Zumbrota, so.
We do your utility rate studies too, for water and sewer, and working with DFA on some of the sewer issues. But I would say we do probably, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've done over 100 of these. So, yeah, I'm a whole lot of fun at a cocktail party, I can tell you.
Perfect. Any more questions for Jessica? Thanks, Jessica. Great
Thank
job as
you.
usual.
Thank you.
So we just need a motion to adopt this tool.
The tool, not adopt the plan.
I'm gonna use tool.
Is that what I put on there? Yep.
Yeah.
Planning tool, capital improvement investment planning tool.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-0. Thanks again, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's do the new business. Christ Lutheran Church Developers Agreements. Mr. Bill.
Brian, are you starting, Brian, or?
And it, Kurt wasn't unable to be here tonight, so.
So in your packet is a memo from Kurt Meister, and the recommendation from staff, which is Brian, myself, Kurt, and Mike, is that 2 things are approved tonight. So the developers agreement, and then by approving the developers agreement, then you're approving the plans for the site. So there are still some things that are being addressed. So this would be conditional upon a couple items, engineering items still to be resolved. Those couple items are, they still are waiting for a permit from Goodhue County on some wetland issues, and they're still awaiting pricing from Xcel Energy on streetlights. So those 2 items. In the developers agreement, those are highlighted in yellow. So if you saw, there's a couple spots to fit in. When we sent your packet out, we still had some other engineering items that weren't resolved. So you'll see the engineering plans. There's a spot there for the date. Those were submitted yesterday. So we did get those yesterday. We did make them through. These are the only other 2 items. So maybe one thing to note, Brian, is this is a new our 2 new council members, you probably haven't seen a development agreement. This is a new format. So the city is utilizing a new form. This is a little different than we've used in the past. We think this is a little more streamlined and maybe a little bit easier to understand. So other than that, I'll pause. In the packet is a picture of what the facility looks like. They have started construction. Now, the only construction they're started is the city did issue a grading permit last fall, so they can move dirt, but they cannot put any pipe in the ground or anything related to that. So, and then one last item, which will be tied to this, is the construction of 9th Street. That's something that we have discussed with the council, that Christ Lutheran has requested that when they build the church and they build, in essence, the portion of 9th Street for their property, that the remainder of 9th Street to the west of here will be paved as well. So that'll be a discussion. That's not a part of anything you're doing tonight, but that'll be something you'll consider at a future council meeting. The development agreement does allow them to pave their portion of 9th Street in 2024. So that is what staff is recommending. So Brian or Mike, anything to add? Or
And how that ties into the discussion we just had about bonding. We would have the cash for Mill and 6th Street next year, but not 9th Street, and not all of the cash for that. So that's where the bonding discussion comes in for next year. Keep in mind that it is a special assessment project, so those dollars, or part of those dollars, will come back to the city over a number of years. But like Bill said, typically when you allow a development in your city, bring an improved road there towards the tail end of their project. So that'll be a budget discussion as well later on when we do the budgeting and we ask to consider issuing some debt.
I got two questions I got. Bill, when you referred to the church, you mean the school, right? When they build the church, you really mean the school, because there's not a church going. Okay, I just want to make sure that, yeah. Because you said church, and I'm like, I don't think they're building
Yeah,
a church.
they have reminded us that it's Christ Lutheran Evangelical Ministry Center
Yes.
is the title, so sorry about that. So
No, that's
yes.
okay. I just wanted, have we seen a bid, or Bill, have you worked a bid up on what it's going to take for 9th Street? Have we got a price, or has he not been directed for that yet?
Not been directed. So when we were working with Mr. Wolbig a couple of years ago, we had some estimates at that time, but no, we have not. What Brian and I have talked about is that to start an assessment process, we'd probably bring that back to you midsummer. I think we were talking maybe July, for if the city council wanted to move forward, then we'd prepare costs at that time.
My question, you mentioned it too, I think it's July of 24 to have the paved.
Correct.
I kind of believe that we should tie that in with the 9th Street project, but if we're not going to do 9th Street next year, if we're not going to have that done, they have to have theirs paved? Excuse me.
Yeah, actually, Brian, feel free to chime in, but the discussions that Brian and I have had is that we will come with a proposal for you here in July to pave it in 24, so that we will match up. But that will be a future decision for you. And then, for example, if, say, in July, hypothetically, you decide we don't want to do it in 24, we could either still require the church to build their portion of 24, or we could extend, we could amend their development agreement.
I mean, kind of in a nutshell where we're at. We either do 9th Street or Mill Street and 6th, which we've talked about that.
Yep.
A few times, so.
I just don't think we should require them to have theirs done before we have our portion done either. So it's just the wording in here just makes me a little nervous about that. I don't agree with that. If it can be worded another way, versus to come back and say, well, we can amend it later. I don't know how that goes over with the Christ Lutheran people.
Well, and we don't like you to, make a decision before it's time.
Yep.
Because we'll be coming back in July for you to, initiate, in essence, the construction of 9th Street. But if you really feel like today you're probably not going to do that, well, then that would be more important. But if you have the sense that you probably will do that, or at least that's the direction you're going, then we'd probably be okay. And I don't want to step on Matt, or Brian still is there. So I think we'd probably lean back to you, Bob, to say, okay, do you think you will move forward with that? And if you are, then we'll be good.
Your boomerang came right back to you.
I mean, what am I going to vote to get 9th done? Good question.
Yeah, and that's why we want to be a little careful, because it's not time for that, but we also want to spell it out so it's clear, so you understand the expectations too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
But otherwise, we could leave it as is, or we could come back with some different wording, or we could come back and amend it, in July when we have a more concrete direction from you guys.
Yeah, by direction from you guys, you can direct us to amend the developer's agreement at that time if need be.
Right.
So the wording wouldn't have to be changed now in there in order to say, hey, if we're not doing 9th Street, let's amend the development agreement and not require them to do their portion until we do ours. That can be amended later. Is that right, Bill?
Right, correct. But by the way, one other comment we have had with the contractor, and that is inflation. And that is, there's the whole, they're raising money and they're paying for it, but there's also the cost of what's gas doing, what's oil, what are the costs. So there has been they may be better off building in 24, even if we, allow them to, say, push it back. So that's predicting gas prices, so. We'll just,
A lot of variables on
Yeah.
it.
And when we met with Alan Schumacher and the other gentleman from the church and talked through all of this stuff with the development agreement before we presented
You
it.
talked about dates with him, with Alan?
Yep.
have in here were the dates that we provided to them and they agreed to.
They already have.
Well, yes.
Well-
Now, when I agree to, it's their committee, because they have to still take it back to the congregation too.
But they are aware of the dates that are
Yes.
listed here as well.
Yes.
It wasn't put together just by us. It was a meeting and
Yeah,
It was initiated by us, and then they came in and talked to us about some things that they wanted to talk about, which that was one of them. So,
yeah, so they have reviewed this, they've provided changes, so we have incorporated their comments into what you have in your packet tonight.
yep, so if there's other questions, well, we're just looking for approval of the conditional approval of the developers agreement, conditional on completion of the items in the engineer's letter.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-0. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Mayor.
9B, Ziba Block Party Road closure. Did I get it right?
You did.
I didn't think about it. Brian.
Yeah, Ziba's holding their annual block party from 2 PM to 8 PM on Thursday, June 1st. I've got the map in there. This is similar to what they've done the last couple of years, requesting a closure. Same area. I think it's a little longer this time. They're going to do the full blocks, but they have spoken to the bank. They've spoken to all the businesses on both sides of the road. That was I knew the question would come up, so I asked them to do that ahead of time. And I've got an email stating that, yep, they've talked to everybody and everybody's okay with the closure. Additional things, and I don't remember, so we did have a police officer doing traffic control there the last couple of years. So they're requesting that again. And then they asked if we could bring up 3 garbage cans, trash cans, and 1 recycling container. I thought maybe we could just borrow them from the park for the day or for that time frame, if you wish to do that. Otherwise, they kind of run around and find them from their homes or wherever they can get them. So
What'd they do last year?
that's what they did last year. They went around. I think they went around and find their own. I don't think we delivered any up there, did we, Mike? No. So they do have their own cones for the road closures. That was the thing they bought last year. But so those are the 3 requests: close the road for that time period. Police officer for traffic control on Main Street. There's a lot of people crossing back and forth. And then 3 trash containers and 1 recycling container.
Who's gonna change it if they get full in the middle of it? or
They
it's
handle
overflowing?
that.
Okay.
They empty them. They've got people designated
So
to do
they'll
that.
empty them?
Yep. Well, I could volunteer the mayor for that, maybe.
I'm busy that day, directing traffic.
Mayor wants to direct traffic, all right.
When we have an officer there directing traffic, is that part of the normal shift with 2 of you guys on, or is that extra for us?
It has been extra.
It has been extra, like today it wouldn't work. We're both out of town for,
And they request Pasquale. He's done the last 2 years.
And he's not on that day, so
So
it would be-
it's overtime.
it'd be,
so.
what, 6 hours of extra, give or take? I don't think they have to be there right at 2. I think it's like 2:30 to 7:30 or something, because it winds down. And it would be overtime.
That's what we've done in the past, though, right?
We have done that.
This will be our 3rd year, I believe.
Yep.
I mean, I'm okay with the garbage cans as long as they are worried about disposing of it and cleaning it up. Because I don't expect our street guys to clean that up.
And sorry, step on you there, but I did talk to Ziba about police officer and cost associated with that. I had mentioned that I think we charge the Cover Bridge Festival for police time. We have not charged Ziba as of yet. They don't have the money in the budget this year, but they're willing to look at budgeting for that in years to come. So if we were to say they had to pay for it this year, they'd have to figure something else out. There'd probably be one of them standing out there directing traffic or stopping, or they'd have flags or something. But here on out, they're yeah, I kind of told them that, hey, we do charge Cover Bridge Festival, so
You know, what
feels
we-
like we should charge them too, but they don't have it in the budget. It's kind of late to bring it to them. I didn't let them know that until they were.
Tuesday?
Tuesday, yeah, yep, so.
Do we know what we charged the Covered Bridge Festival, and do we know what the coverage was? Was that more for the street dance? Is that what we had Dee Dee on?
No, it was more for like the market and extra police enforcement down there. And it runs depending on anywhere from, I would say for 6-hour shifts, figure in the upper 300s for police coverage when you figure time and a half. And all
'Cause
the
I don't
stuff.
remember us charging Covered Bridge.
Oh, we did.
Did we?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember ever that, but.
And I think they hired someone overnight too, didn't they? Because they've got, the vendors are all set up down there, so.
Forward is mention to them that, yeah, that they should account for that.
I also think we need to, and I don't know if we have a fee schedule for that already, but I mean, since for now we could possibly have 2 businesses or 2 parties, 2 festivals, that we need to figure out a fee. If anybody wants to hire our police officer, what are we gonna charge? So, I mean, just where we can say, we're not giving one a different rate than the other. So I think that's something that, do we have a
that.
fee now?
We don't have a set standard fee in place, but we do it with street department as well. We just take the wage of whoever, time and a half and figure and calculate in the benefits.
So, I mean, I think we need to come up with that figure, maybe just put it in our fee schedule. Just sort of when the block party comes, saying, okay, if you have an officer or the festival has, they want an officer, they want 2, it's X amount of dollars. And then they can budget 2 versus just throwing them a number at it. So maybe when we get to the fee schedule, we can work on that.
So we just need a motion?
I do.
Okay, so I make a motion that we approve the 3rd annual Ziva Block Party.
Road loader. And then whatever the other thing.
Garbage cans and police.
Yeah.
Garbage cans and police.
Second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-0. Thanks, Brian. Blower at the plant. Mike?
Yeah, we had, one of the blowers went down on us. The PD blowers incorporated out of, Georgia. They gave us the cost of, repair or cost of a new unit. And with time constraints on this, the, repair, we would be good with going with the repair to get it back in a quicker amount of time. And when they repair it, it's gonna be pretty much like a new one, so
So we're doing a rebuilt one then.
a rebuild.
Can you explain what the blower is for?
The blower, that works for the ponds, without it, well, they need to run 24/7, and it's, how nitrogen and ammonia is removed from the polishing ponds, which we have a limit on, so kind of critical to get it back, we're down to 1 blower now. And they were original blowers from 1984 that they didn't update, so.
Do these blowers usually work in tandem or is one on the back?
Usually they work together.
We just need a motion to approve the blower.
I'll make that a motion to approve the blower purchase for the rebuild. Was that like 17,072, if I remember right?
Perfect.
I'll second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-0. 9D, liquor license renewal. Brian?
Yep, just looking for approval on those liquor licenses. All the background stuff has been done. Everything is good. Miranda said, go ahead and get it approved. Or offer the option of council approval on these.
We can just make a single motion to approve all of them. All right.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the liquor licenses as listed.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 400. Thanks again, Brian. 9E, advertising bids for the trail improvements. Mike?
Now, we want to get the trail done this year. I think in there, they give you a copy of the drawings of it'll be just the inner part of the park down here. We just need approval to go out for advertisement for bids on our trail improvement. It'll consist of reclaiming existing trail, aggregate base, bituminous pavement, and then some miscellaneous. So we need to do the whole thing. Yes. The plan is to have the proposal back upon by city council at a meeting to be held in June. And the money from this project comes from trails and bridge funds and some ARPA dollars. But the trail is, I think everybody's well aware, it's in pretty tough shape.
How many miles or feet does this, do you know, Mike, right on?
But I don't have.
I mean, give me a ball, I mean, I don't need,
It was 7,000 feet, something like that.
so what, a mile and a half? No, it's not that, is it?
Yeah, it was like 5,000.
5,000.
And this is one of those, we get a lot of calls and posts on Facebook and so I had envisioned if we could at least do along the river this year and then follow up later with the rest of it. But turns out we've been pretty good about saving money for the trail and most of it is there. We may need a little bit from ARPA to do all of that trail. I think Mike mentioned we're not going to do in the park or in the woods yet because we're going to have to be driving heavy equipment down there to replace that bridge, hopefully in the near future, that trestle bridge. So
What are ARPA dollars?
what was the acronym again? American Rescue Plan Act.
Act, it's what
During
came during
COVID.
COVID. And we have so
The
many,
government was just
we received about $347,000 and we have a specific time frame in which to spend it. And so we've been spending it on different things.
This is qualified. Yes.
We use it, was it called an exception or exemption or something that,
It's considered a loss of revenue.
yeah, we can use it
Falls
on
under that.
any government spending, whether it's buildings or, I think we use some for the public works building, any of that type of stuff, public infrastructure, which is trails, roads, and whatever we choose to use it for. As long as it's government spending. We try to find ways to get it out a little bit more, but these ARPA dollars were really tough. So that's why we chose to use it for government spending. And you guys probably weren't here. What we wanted to do was use these dollars to mitigate levy impact on some of these things. So we're accomplishing public works building, new financial system,
All
body
this
cams,
stuff
all
here.
with these dollars that would typically would have to go right on the levy. And so by that way, we're impacting all the taxpayers, by not putting all that on the levy. So that was what we had talked about when we decided how to use the ARPA dollars. And this is one of those things that would fit right in there. And it's a need, and the public will appreciate it tremendously.
I'll make a motion to approve the advertising for bids for trail improvement.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 400. Thanks, Mike. Reports. Right.
Only 2 pages. No, kidding. The downtown bank building is for sale or for lease, Franzen. They want to maintain a presence because they want the drive-through down there and then they want a walk-up counter. So if they lease it to somebody, they would keep a little portion of it, or even if they sell the building, they would want to keep a presence in there because they want a presence downtown, which I think all of us would appreciate. I know Kim walks down there different times.
I think a lot of the
with our
business owners walk down there.
The business owners, yep. So that's just an awareness thing. Brian Haugen mentioned that at the EDA last night, so I figured it's public knowledge. So I want to get that out there. So if you know of anybody looking for a space to lease, beautiful building. I mean, it's an old building, but inside, if you remove some walls, it's open front to back. There's light windows all the way through. Basement is nice and bright too, so it's a great building. So hopefully we can get something in there. I'm sure Mike was going to talk a little bit about the trestle too, but I just wanted to say, great job by Public Works staff. Larry and the guys got out there, did a repair. I walked across it. It's solid, which is surprising because there's nothing left underneath it hardly. The bridge is safe, but some of the structure underneath is rotting, the ancillary structure. So to make that solid again was quite a feat, and to do it so quickly. So it's open, it's safe for pedestrians and snowmobiles. We put some concrete blocks there to narrow it up a little bit, so hopefully no bigger vehicles will drive over. We're going to put no unauthorized motorized vehicles signs at both ends of those legs of the trail, where the fork is for the Goodhue Pioneer Trail. There'll be one there, and there'll be one on St. Paul Road just as you enter in, to hopefully mitigate any of that, because it'll last a little while yet for pedestrians and snowmobiles, as long as we don't drive anything heavy over it again. But we are putting a priority with our grant writers to look for grant dollars and any other funding assistance we could find for a replacement. We had a bridge company out come take a look at it, and they looked at the steel underneath, and we're losing cross section. Again, it's not unsafe. It's a safe bridge for pedestrians, but not for too many more years. So we're going to be looking at trying to do a replacement, and we'll look at funding sources for that. It's going to be expensive. WHKS did a study a number of years ago, and it was anywhere from
I think it was $1 million.
$700,000 to $1 million. $1 million was a full replacement. So that was a number of years ago, depending on what kind of bridge you would do too. So anyway, we're happy to have the trail open, and there's a lot of people that are happy to have the trail. I couldn't go anywhere. Yeah, I couldn't go anywhere without people asking me, when can we walk through again? So big thank you to Public Works staff for getting on that. I think in less than 2 days, they fixed it up. So SMIF, Small Town Long-Term Economic Growth Grant. It's called a REV grant for some reason. I don't know exactly, but Roxanne Barsh and Community Development Director Kurt Meister met with Tim Penny. He's the chair of the SMIF, or Southern Minnesota Initiative Fund. They toured the theater and some of downtown and other areas, and talked about funding, economic growth, moving into the future. And Mr. Penny encouraged Roxanne to apply for a small towns grant that will assist small towns in engaging long-term economic growth. And it was noted that they look favorably on projects that demonstrate collaboration. So representatives from ZEBA, the theater, and the city, Kurt and I, will meet next Tuesday with Roxanne to talk about collaboration, what that might look like for doing a submittal for a grant. That's about what I know right now on that, but we're going to collaborate with them just to at least initial meeting, just to see what it would involve, and try to infuse some money into long-term economic growth in our community.
That it?
Want more?
No.
No, that's it.
Thank you. Sarge, do you have anything?
I was aware that the PD was recipient of a grant from the U of M for 5 AEDs that we took possession of, I believe. So I think starting to swell for working on that. That's what all I have.
Let me piggyback on that. Along with that, we are going to put up the newer one, because they've got the relatively new ones in their vehicles anyway. So one will go to the library to upgrade over there, because they've got an old one. And then we'll give one to ZEBA. Then ZEBA will put it on this end of Main Street. It'll be a donation. It'll be theirs to maintain and theirs to find a location for, and all that good stuff. And then, so that's 2 of them, and there's probably 3 more that we can find a spot for. So I don't know, I think this is a newer one in here too, but anyway, so yeah, it was a great program. Goodhue County has got about 35 of them they were looking for homes for too. So I called local churches. Christ Lutheran has 2 of them. United Redeemer's got 1, and then I haven't heard back from St. Paul's Catholic Church yet. So if you think of any other areas, that might be able to benefit from an AED, just let us know.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarge. Matt? Bill, do you have any more? Kimberly? James? Mike? I have two things I just want to touch up. Thanks for getting the bridges fixed, Public Works. I know I had gotten a little heat from at home for one, but I had another handful of residents reach out. And I also just want to give a shout out to Officer Disbro. I had a resident come and thank me or thank the city or the PD. They don't hear enough pat on the backs that he handled an accident on Main Street with their daughter. It was their first accident, 16 here earlier in the week, last week. So I just wanted to give Disbro for doing a good job and the rest of the PD. 'Cause I know they don't hear enough of that. Bob? Joan? Kevin?
Nothing.
Meeting adjourned.
I can convert it.
Okay.
But I can convert it. I have to have my new